Khleif.
Welcome to another edition of Lifetime Cash Flow through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Khleif, and I am thrilled that you're here. We're going to have a lot of fun today. Off topic today, we're not going to talk about multifamily. We're going to talk about house hacking. And I've got Matt Porcaro here, and Matt is an expert in the 203K way. I think that's the name of your company. But anyway, so we're going to have a lot of fun today and talk about house hacking. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, Rod.
Yeah,
I've been a big fan of you for a long time, man. You're one of the OGs in the space, so it's cool to have the opportunity to be here.
Kind of you to say that. Well, why don't you give us your story, man? It always starts with the story. Why real estate? Where'd you come from?
Yeah,
and so on.
Absolutely. So I'm the guy that always knew that there had to be a better way, just with everything in life, right? But couldn't find it. Grew up in a blue collar environment, and
where?
New York,
okay.
Long Island, New York.
Okay.
So my dad had his own business, and money from a very young age was the root of all evil, stress, fights. Fear. They didn't hide money problems from me. Love my parents, but I was exposed from a very young age. So from a very young age, I was always like, there's got to be a better way. And my parents always told me that too. Now to them, it was go to school, get a good job, go to college, and
get a pension.
Yeah, get a paycheck every week. Because to them, that consistency was the dream, right? So I did that. I wasn't the best student by any means, but I remember thinking about what I wanted to do for college and went to my guidance counselor, and she's like, "What are you thinking about doing?" I'm like, "What makes the most money in 4 years?" Because I knew I wasn't going to be I wasn't savvy enough to be a doctor or a lawyer or anything like that. I was like, "What's the highest paying degree in 4 years?" She's like, "All the engineering things." I was like, "Okay, I'm pretty good at science. Let's do engineering." So I went to school for electrical engineering. Graduated in 4 years by the skin of my teeth, started working in New York City. Very lucky, got hired right away, but also right away realized that this isn't really the answer either. And it was actually working in New York City when I was walking to lunch one day. And, in New York City, you got the guys that sell the books on the street, right? Like used books. Everyone's got to hustle in New York City. So I'm on my way going to Five Guys or something. And I saw Rich Dad, Poor Dad on the table. And as we all know that book, and I always heard about it, and I'm like, hey, whatever. And I said that, and a couple of the other books like Cash Flow Quadrant and all the other ones, I just kind of grabbed a bunch. I was like, hey, how much for all of them? He's like, give me $5. That $5 completely changed my life, as it does for many people. I like to say it's like taking the red pill, because it really exposes you, especially a kid like me, grew up super blue collar. Like the word investing never came up in my household. So. This was it turned a new leaf for me. So it kind of pushed me down the rabbit hole, tried a bunch of different strategies, but really couldn't crack it in New York. Obviously, very high cost of living area. It was really hard to find anything.
You were in the city.
So I grew up in Long Island, but yeah, I was working in the city and commuting back and forth. But, Long Island too is pretty crazy.
Oh, it's not cheap. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So, the idea of buying real estate, I tried to have my own businesses of whatever, email marketing, all e-commerce, whatever you could think of, tried a bunch of different strategies. Real estate, I read in the book, is the best asset class. But to me, I was like, I couldn't imagine owning multiple houses, albeit one. Tried a lot of different strategies, tried wholesaling, tried flipping houses with no money, seller financing.
New York State?
Yeah, just tried some courses, just tried the things, and really nothing really was able to pan out for me. I didn't have much money. I didn't have much money to market. I was basically using all my disposable income from my W-2 to try to get into it. Anyway, long story short, I joined a local real estate investment association, and the lady that ran it is named Melissa. And she was a super mom, ran the RIA, had 500 properties, whatever. And I grabbed her and I pulled her to the side one day and I was like, hey, listen, Melissa, I've been at this for a while. Do you know, maybe New York's different, right? Everyone thinks their New York, their market's different. Right. So I said, this market's different. What can I do here that'll work? And she's like, listen, I've never done this before, but there's a loan product called the FHA 203K loan. And in all the years I was studying and reading up on stuff, this is the first time I ever heard about it. And she said, it is a FHA loan, so it requires you to live in the property, but it allows you to purchase a property for only 3.5% down. And what's cool about the 203K is it wraps in the renovation budget into your mortgage. So you can purchase the house plus wrap in the renovation costs into the house and basically do a BRRRR strategy. So she said, for new investors, for someone that's looking to get into the game, it's like a cheat code. So if I could go back in time and do it over, I would have started with this because it would have leveraged my money very quickly. So that's essentially the first time I learned about it, and the rest was history.
When was that?
That was back in 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's drill down on it a little
Sure.
bit because it's a fantastic way for somebody to get started in this business. And obviously I deal in multifamily, and the people that typically sit at that couch start with single family, end up in multifamily. They buy a house, they buy a plex, and then the name of the game is go bigger. But it's a fantastic place to start. So talk about a little more detail. 3% down.
Yep.
It's been so long since I've dealt with this, but I dealt with it a lot. I sold a few hundred houses to 203K buyers when I had 500 houses in Denver at one time.
Right.
And so talk about some of the parameters. What's the minimum credit score you need? Talk about can you borrow any of the down payment? Can it be gifted? I mean, I remember back then you could gift it. I'm just trying to think in my head because it's been so long, but talk about a little more detail. Yeah,
so remember, like the FHA products are there to instill the ability to buy homes, even for people that maybe don't have a lot.
Stimulate home ownership.
It's to stimulate home ownership, which is important, right? And the 203K version, again, is just allows you to purchase as is properties and be able to renovate them, right? So to your point, it's low barrier of entry. It's pretty much the lowest barrier of entry mortgage out there. 3.5% down is all you need to put down. Your credit score needs to be 580.
No shit. Wow, that's not bad at all.
No, okay. 580. So again, if you're in
you
that
can't
range,
have any foreclosures or bankruptcies. But
exactly. I mean, 2 years of consistent income, right? They like, I wouldn't say 1099's ruled out, but they like, the cushier the better on the
What's
income.
What's the debt to income requirement?
50% roughly.
So 50%.
Yep.
So 50% to the total debt, 50% debt to
correct,
income, including your
income.
New mortgage payment on the house.
Exactly, to gross income.
Okay.
Yep. And again, so lowest barrier of entry of any mortgage class out there. It's very forgiving in that world. You brought up a great point with the with the down payment stuff, and so there's ways you can actually, of course, you can get a gift on the down payment
from a family member.
Yep, from a family member.
You, right?
Yep. And one of the cool things is the seller concession limit.
They can do a fixed
6%. They'll give you of the purchase price. So, when I did my first deal, right, I bought a duplex. So I found out about house hacking almost by accident, because what happened was, even in New York, I had a decent salary as an engineer working in the city. I bought a crack house, literal crack house duplex. I mean, it was literally, nobody would touch it. Everyone said it was a knockdown, but it was the only thing I could afford. And I actually didn't even think I could afford it on paper. My lender actually told me, he's like, well, listen, this is a legal 2-family. I said, okay, what does that mean? He said, we can forecast the future rental income of the other unit, and we're able to take that and increase your debt to income ratio. So now you have essentially a $2,000 a month raise on your monthly income.
So I have a question about this, because actually Matt and I argued about this. Because back then, to use a rental income for a second, third, or fourth unit in a residential multifamily, you can go up to a fourplex, there had to be an existing lease, and you could use 75% of the lease. So what you're saying, it doesn't have to be leased. So he said it doesn't either. No. Okay. No. Well, that's new, because it didn't used to be like that.
Yeah, just market rent.
Yeah, it didn't used to be like that. Okay.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, that's cool to know. And so it goes off of market rent.
Okay.
And it's based on the appraiser, and they'll take, they don't take the full amount. They take 75%.
75%.
But that was enough to get me over, because I wasn't able to afford it on my own. I picked up the property for $270,000, and it was an $80,000 like full gut renovation.
Wow.
Right. So it was all into the property for $350,000. I only put $9,500 down on that. Wow. And actually, any of the brainiacs that do math quick in their head, they're like, $9,500 is not 3.5%. It's actually closer to like 2.5%. What happened in my case was I went to the closing table and I got a full seller's concession, because I found a good deal, which is in the heart of all of this. Finding good deals, that's what we did. I was doing a value add thing. I was looking at it through the eyes of an investor. So what happened was I went to the closing table, and they actually wrote me a check back. I had the 3.5%, but they wrote me a check back at closing. So I was actually able to put less
than 3.5%.
Wow,
they never permitted that either. That's new too.
Yeah.
You could have seller concessions, but it was sure as hell wasn't 6%. It was like 3% or something.
Yeah.
But so now the concession has to be for a reason, correct? No?
Absolutely not.
They can just give you 6%.
Yep.
So literally someone could buy an asset really no money out of pocket.
Well, so that was kind of a little bit of a, they definitely want you to
that.
bring.
They want some money out of pocket.
They want some money out of pocket. Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously you can get it gifted. That's one way to do it.
Right.
In the Fannie May space, so Fannie May just entered the mix too.
Right.
So it typically used to only be FHA was the only player in the game that would allow you to buy up to a 4-unit property. With only low down payment, 3.5% down. Fannie Mae, just as of November of last year, entered the mix, and now they're allowing you to buy up to a 4-unit property with only 5% down.
But are they going to wrap in the renovation?
Yes, they do that also. It's called a home style loan. Yeah, I'm actually doing a home style on my own house right now.
No kidding.
Yeah, on my forever home.
Okay.
So, but basically, it's a great vehicle no matter which way you look at it, and the Fannie Mae now entering the mix, they have the ability to you can get a gift of equity from the seller. So I have a guy doing a deal right now. He's very close with the seller. Not very close in that, like it has to be an arm's length transaction. It can't be like, but he knows the guy. He was his neighbor, whatever. He's buying the house from him, and he's willing to give him a full gift of equity and covering the whole down payment. So he has no money out of pocket to buy a duplex down in Texas with this new Fannie Mae product.
Wow.
Which
well,
is
guys,
wild.
we can you can negotiate that all day long.
Yeah.
If somebody's
They just need to give a letter.
Yeah.
A letter that they're giving that to him.
Yeah, if somebody is really desperate to sell, you've got a tough asset, and you just tell them, listen, I'll do this, but you're going to have to gift me the down payment back.
Right.
And I could see how this could really work well direct to seller, where there's no broker involved, they're not paying a commission.
100%.
So if you go direct to seller and you're saving them the commission, say, listen, you're saving the commission, but I need you to gift me the equity to get this deal done. And it can be everything, closing costs, everything?
Oh, yeah.
No shit.
Everyone that I work with, nobody pays closing costs on these reno. So the reno is obviously the portion that really makes this shine, right? Because if you buy a distressed asset, you have more leverage in the deal. What's crazy about the FHA 203K is they allow you to get 110% loan to value of the ARV. So you can over leverage it. Now I wouldn't advise that, but they will let you over leverage the property. So
okay, and I need to understand that because does that reduce the 3.5% down payment? How does that work?
No. So all it means is that if you let's say for example, if your loan amounts or if your property is going to be worth $500,000 when you're done renovating it, right? They'll give you a loan of $550,000 on that property, because they know that you're going to renovate it. And remember, it's an owner-occupant loan, so that's why they're giving you those really favorable terms,
so you still have to come up with the down payment, but...
Yeah, the down payment would still just be 3.5%.
So this is just extra fix-up money?
Yeah, or whatever. What we were actually doing during the pandemic when a lot of people weren't able to close on their properties because appraisals weren't hitting,
right.
We were flipping their loans to 203K limiteds, which are like a streamlined, they used to be called a 203K streamlined. It's a minimum $5,000 you need to have for the renovation. So basically what they would do is if someone their appraisal wasn't coming through, we'd flip it to a 203K loan and they would get an extra 10% loan to value. So that would push them over. We'd give them, say $5,000, just go get new appliances and a new fresh coat of paint. And that would get them over the closing table when their appraisal didn't go through.
Oh, interesting.
So it's another really little interesting thing there. But again, whole thing with me is buying a good deal. And I looked at it through the eyes of an investor, because when you look at it through the eyes of an investor, with what I did, that $9,500,
you leave it as much of the emotion out of it as you can.
Yeah.
Right.
And I wanted to be all in. I was all in on my first property for, 75% loan to value, built $130,000 in equity in 6 months. With $9,500 plus that property was cash flowing me $2,000 a month. I still have it. Still cash flows me $2,000 a month in Long Island, New York.
In Long Island, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a cash cow for me. But my ROI, we always talk like returns and especially in the multifamily game, like cash on cash return, NOI, stuff like that. My cash on cash return in the first year was like 1,200% or something crazy.
Sure.
So,
which you can do when you move in, but
of course,
you can't do that. You can't do that in my world.
But for me, it was the springboard that got me in. And once I had that, not only did I have a great asset that was feeding me, I had more capital that I was tapping to get into the flipping game. And
so you flip now too?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I was flipping. I slowed down on that right now. I'm renovating my own house right now. But ultimately, it's what got me into the game, doing more of the burst strategy. And but most importantly, it gave me a track record, because all of a sudden lenders were willing to talk to me.
Yeah.
realtors were willing to talk to me. So it gave me the leverage that I needed to get into a game that I was really struggling to find a way in.
Interesting. So I know you can't like flip these things. What do you advise people, when they move in, and you can't, don't play with this, guys. Don't like turn the utilities in your name and go talk to some neighbors and then never move in, because that's called bank fraud. And,
right.
And,
No, we don't
want to
that.
see your face in the paper.
Yep.
But how long do you realistically have to live in one of these properties?
Yeah. So it's
days?
a year. So on FHA, it's a year from the closing date.
Okay.
So
okay.
in my case, right, it took me 8 months to renovate.
Okay.
Fully. And then I actually refinanced out into conventional immediately because I got rid of the mortgage insurance.
Oh, yeah.
Mortgage insurance, that extra little VIG that you pay to the FHA for being a subprime borrower, right? But I refinanced out. The rate dropped a little bit at the time. I think I had like a 6.5 when I walked in, and it got down to a 5.5 or something. So I got a little boost in cash flow, got out of that. And, ultimately I was able to leverage against that and pull for my flipping side. But I was only really there for a very short time. I had then just gotten engaged with my now wife, and it was the vehicle that got me in. Yeah. And when you say like it's not something to repeat, as long as you follow the rules to the game and you're not being egregious with it, as you just said, you could repeat it. Now, up until literally November of last year, you could only have one FHA under your name at any given time. So you would have to refinance out. You'd have to do the BRRRR strategy to make it happen.
Fannie's different.
Fanny May allows 11 loans under your name.
How long do you have to own it with Fannie? Do you know?
It's a looser guideline, but a year.
A year.
You have to sign an affidavit saying that is your primary residence.
Yeah.
Now again, don't play with it, but I have plenty of people that I've done multiple of these renovation loans and these house hacks where lived in one unit, rented out the other, taking advantage of these renovation loans to build the force equity into my house. I'm doing it in my own house right now. To your point earlier, I got that off market, got a great deal, forcing almost $500,000 in equity on that thing. It's as long as you move out of really the rule is you have to make sure that the debt service is covered on the previous property. So if you moved into a
Otherwise
triplex,
it affects your debt to income. Right.
So if you had a triplex, you'd have to get your lease agreement set up with that, and then let the lender know that you're planning on moving to the next one, and then you have someone that's intended to be your new leaser on that empty unit.
How much of the let's say you have that triplex, and you get it leased. Do they only use 75% of the lease amount to qualify you for the next one?
Yeah, on that, and then they are flexible with that. It really depends on the lender, right?
Okay.
At the end of the day, straight up, best piece of advice I could give on this is you have to work with a lender that understands this.
Yeah,
because most lenders do not. 90% of them, 99% of them don't, or they'll pretend to understand and they really don't.
Yeah, just like realtors that will
exactly.
take your multifamily listing and they haven't got a clue what to do with it.
Exactly.
They'll take your business, but they'll screw it up if you don't have somebody who knows what they're doing. Yeah. I'm kind of surprised you're an engineer, brother. You're a very outgoing guy. Usually engineers are introverted and they're not very...
So very recently, I sailed that off into the sunset.
Yeah.
It was a long time. I had the opportunity to work for some great companies, some big companies, and it became later in my career that I was kind of just consulting, and then very recently I kind of got off of it. Now I'm full-time real estate, and I realized that pretty quickly being in the game that
I would not have guessed that. I would not have guessed. Yeah. I would not have, if I was going to pick something for you in your history, it would sales, marketing, but not engineer.
Yeah, which is more of what I love, and I love. More than anything, I love just being a connector and a people person, and real estate is the most people person thing out there. I think a lot of people don't realize that, but so that was it was also my calling. Listen, I was very appreciative of my engineering career because it's what enabled me to get into the game. When I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it was funny. I was just talking to someone about this. Rich Dad Poor Dad, he's basically W-2's evil, right?
Right.
So I read that book and I remember screw the man, I'm going to go off on my own. And I was angry at my job for a while, but then I realized that my job was my jobs and my jobs were the reasons that I was able to buy real estate in the beginning. It made me financeable.
Sure.
And it
critical.
got my leg in the door.
Yes.
So I always tell people, don't quit your day job right away, because it's the avenue that's going to get you in for the lowest amount of resistance.
No, I get students that ask me, should I quit this and do multifamily in my warrior? Should I do it full time? I'm like, no, not unless you've got a nest egg or you have some other source of income.
You need another cash flow
not
income.
just to qualify, but there's something called fear. And fear paralyzes. And if you haven't got, deals coming in or money happening right away, fear will lock you down. That income prevents that from happening. And you can do you can do what you do on the side. You can do what I do on the side. You just have to go do it. Now, I know you have a program. It's called the 203K Way, where you help people do this and get their first property. What's the website for that?
Yeah, so the 203kway.com, obviously if people want to work with me, it's the 203kway.com/apply.
Okay.
But, I have a Facebook group. When I first started this, I was answering, nobody talks about the 203K.
Right.
It's real estate investing's best kept secret for beginners. I'm fully hands down. I think the lenders and the real estate agents have been gatekeeping it for years just because it's a little more work for them, even though it's better for the borrower. And that's the reality of it. And that's why I started this platform, because I had done it successfully. I had helped a couple of my friends, a couple of family members do it successfully. And more and more people were asking me about it. How the heck did you do this? Like, such little out of pocket. Like, I was only 26, 27 years old at the time and already had a little real estate portfolio building. So I was answering a lot of the same questions on bigger pockets and stuff. And I just realized there was such a need for it and no one was talking about it. I mean, when I got into it, mine was a rocky road, but being in it, I am the part of the engineer side I do have is the analysis paralysis. I do overanalyze everything. That is the engineer in me. So for someone that's trying to get into the game, it was really hard for me to figure it out. What was great and was almost a blessing with the 203K was that because there was no information on it, it just forced me to put my head down and figure it out. And I learned it so well that I said to my wife one day, I remember sitting on the couch and being like, hey, do you think if I started posting videos about this process, people would watch it? She's like, no, but do it anyway. So, but I mean, suffice to say, it grew tremendously over the years, and it's been really rewarding to help people that were in the same situation as me, looking to get their first house, want to be a real estate investor, kind of felt like they were a little bit of a slave to their W-2.
It's a great way to start. It's a great way to get into real estate. If the missus will allow you to move in, or the mister will allow you to move into something that you may not want as your forever home, just to get started. Yeah. I think it's a fantastic way to get going. Now, you did say that there are gatekeepers because it's a little harder. It's quite a bit harder because you've got to get the bids together for the renovation and all that stuff. So it's a lot more work for the mortgage person than a typical FHA loan without the renovation. But it's not really more work for the realtor, but the realtor, maybe it is actually. They probably have
well, what happened in the last couple of years, especially on the buyer's agent. I mean, we got all this crazy stuff going on with the NAR stuff, agents, and the buyer's agents. And during the pandemic, it kind of turned into give me your highest and best offer, and throw the grenade in the room and cover their ears and pray.
Right.
So anything that they feel like would stand in the way is something that they'd be afraid of. And it's not really, again, it's a disservice to the borrower. We're seeing, the millennial generation, my generation, right? They're having trouble having the ability to own a home to begin with.
Period, yeah.
And to think that they're going to have all the money out of pocket to renovate. I mean, I'm doing a renovation right now in my own house. Again, we're using we're using the home style, the Fanny May, which is the exact same thing really in terms of process. But it enabled even me. I'm like, why am I going to use my own money out of pocket? And, I'm using a little bit out of pocket, sure, to, fill in the blanks. But why am I going to not use the bank's money and finance it over 30 years at a really, at a low rate, even though everyone thinks that rates are high right now, at a low rate compared to credit cards?
Well, let me tell you something. Let's talk about rates for a second.
Sure.
When I got in this business, you weren't even a twinkle in your dad's eye. This is 1978.
Sure.
And interest rates were 18%.
Yeah, of course.
And I remember doing backflips when they hit 7, and we're not even at, we're maybe at 7 now. But and I think they're going to go down a little bit. But listen, who knows? They may stay here. There's going to be some carnage in my business in the multifamily space, which is why
a lot coming ahead.
Yeah, but which is exciting as hell. But But housing is there's a huge pent up demand, so it's even harder for people to get their first place. And this is a fantastic strategy to get in your first place and get started, and realize that you can do it.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't have a problem bringing you here, because this is like candidly, in my opinion, this is like the springboard into what I do, which 100%. Is multifamily. Because everybody that sits in that couch there that's got thousands of doors or even hundreds of doors started with a house or a duplex or a triplex. And I mean, very few exceptions. And so the big hurdle is just getting started.
100%.
And that's why, I think what you're doing is a fantastic way for someone just to get started and not be afraid of the word real estate, and
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like it was like flipping a house and being a landlord with training wheels on.
Yeah.
Because the bank's paperwork and stuff that's there is really there to protect you, right? I came from the construction industry. And, when you talked about getting contractor bids and stuff like that, it's good practice. That's how you should run a renovation all the time, right? You should get multiple bids. You should level the bids, make sure you're comparing apples to apples. You should make sure they're licensed and insured and they have the right credit lines and everything like that. So it really just, to me, again, it was more than anything. Obviously, the returns were great, but it really just gave me the confidence to be like, hey, in one deal, I'm a landlord, I'm a flipper, I'm a burst strategy guy, renovator.
Yeah. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do they put any guardrails in place? Because a lot of people haven't got a freaking clue how to do a renovation.
Yeah.
Is there any? I mean, I know your program, I'm sure, helps with this. I would guess it does, but. Are there any guardrails that FHA or Fanny May put in place?
Yeah, so like something like they have. So there's a couple things. So on the 203K loan side, there is someone that has to be on the deal called a 203K consultant.
Okay.
They're like a home inspector.
Okay.
I call them like the referee of the loan. They're not going to manage it for you,
right?
But they're going to call the balls and strikes. And part of their job is to look at a renovation estimate and be like,
this is
BS,
right.
This is like, this is too low, and they make them break it out by line item. What they give. So the best process to do this, and just a quick little hack for anyone that wants to do this. Number one, you get the best lender you can for this.
Right.
I've been able to build a great network of lenders. The 203kway.com/lender. You just fill in some information. It'll put you in contact with one of my preferred lender partners that are experienced with this. You just need them to be experienced.
Sure.
But you get pre-approved with the lender. You find a deal. You get into contract on it. The first thing you need to do is go to that 203K consultant, because that 203K consultant is going to help you build the scope of work. They're going to tell you what needs to be done because you could buy a property in any condition, right? Like it could be literally a foundation on the ground,
right?
As long as there's some existing structure.
No kidding.
Yeah, no, there's no really limit. Your limit is based on the loan limit, FHA loan limit, which are pretty forgiving.
Well, let's talk about those. Let's talk about those real quick. Well, we finish your thought and then
So you bring in the 203K consultant. They will build you something called a schedule of repairs, and that's a line item scope of work, which gives you a rough idea on kind of feasibly what your renovation is going to be. They'll give you a rough estimate. Now what you do, and again, this is exactly how it works.
So they come do a home inspection and they come up with this thing.
Yep, and they put together.
Before you move on, what do they charge?
So it's like the initial is like a regular home inspection, so like $500-600.
Okay.
And then what happens is after you close, they're your draw specialists. Okay. So as you complete the renovation, the money goes into escrow at closing.
So they do the inspections before you can pull your money out.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's pay as you go. Yeah, you can get a little at closing. That's a common misconception.
Okay.
The contractor gets some startup capital at closing, and then as they go through, and then every time they come out, it's like about $200. But that's all wrappable into the loan.
Do they? I'm sorry, I'm getting a little micro here. Do they evaluate the contractors, make sure they're insured, licensed, any of that?
The bank will do that.
The bank does.
Yeah,
that.
the bank will do that. And again, nothing. They just license, insured, a little. Make sure you have. Again, these are things you should be doing with your contractor anyway.
Don't
use your Aunt Sally's handyman.
That's why I asked you if there were guardrails, because a lot of people wouldn't know this. A lot of people get their asses handed to them.
Oh, 100%.
So this is really great in that regard,
100%.
because you've got people making sure you don't screw up.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked the question.
It's there to help you out, and then automatically on all these loans, a 10% contingency is built in.
Okay.
So whether you use it or not, it's built in. If you don't use it, it goes back to the principal on the loan.
Gotcha.
And that's it. But
gotcha.
Everyone usually uses
that.
Yeah. Because construction.
I just realized I needed a refrigerator. Okay.
Yeah.
Love it. So what, with a seller, what is a typical timeline for one of these things? I'm assuming you close. Yeah, of course you close. Money goes in escrow to fund the fix up. and then you're using this consultant. You call the consultant and say, yeah, we got to this point. You're staging, because you have what's called draws, where you're able to, and same in our space, in the multifamily space, you draw money from the lender. You have to show the work has been done. So the consultant does the inspection so that you can have that money released to the contractor. So I guess the timeline's irrelevant, because it could take months after you close. Does the closing typically take longer in one of these loans?
So that's really where it comes in, and that's what I specialize in, right?
Okay.
So because I know how to build this thing from the beginning to the end. Now, that's where the PTSD comes from on some real estate agents, is because they got with people that just didn't know what they were doing. With this loan is like anything. With great power comes great responsibility. It's a powerful loan. Think about the amount of leverage they're giving you. In exchange for 3.5%, they're giving you all the money to purchase an asset, plus all the renovation budget, plus 10% contingency on top of it, right? So they're giving you a ton of leverage. So the thing is they want to have your ducks in a row and everything like that. My first 203K took about 120 days to close.
Wow.
Now, why?
6 months.
Because my lender had no idea what they were doing.
Okay.
Now, me and my wife, we just bought our own forever home. Big $200,000, $300,000 renovation. $615,000 deal, and we closed in 38 days. No kidding. Because it's just about, if you know it, it's not any more complicated. It's a couple more pieces of documentation.
You just got to check off all the boxes and have your paperwork in order.
Yeah,
and that's what you help people do.
Yep. And when, and people always say, like, because when I tell, people in my community to go make offers on things, and people say, oh, it's an FHA, it's too I just say, number one, especially now with Fanny May entering the mix, conventionals entering the mix, just tell them, say you're putting renovation financing. But here's the cool thing. You could write in your offer, taking as is, no inspection contingency, willing to waive appraisal, because I told you about the appraisal thing. The appraisal is based off of the ARV. The appraisal doesn't become an issue. Close in 45 days. It's a strong offer in a market like this.
Wow, that's cool.
So we're able to do that, and that's what gives you that leverage in. And the other thing, too, is that compared to, I call it the Goldilocks zone, right? So you're able to really surf, 90% of the people in my community are still getting their deals from MLS. I hugely promote off market. That's how I bought my own house.
Sure.
And we got a killer deal on it. But there's, when you look on the MLS, on for someone like a fix and flipper like me, I look on the MLS, I'm like, there's no margin in this deal. There's no way I can even come close. And then a retail buyer can't buy it because it's not financeable, right? What you have with the 203K. Wait a minute,
you mean if it's trashed?
Yeah, right. Because which is the sweet spot for something like a 203K.
You want properties.
Yeah, you want to force the equity.
And that's something. I'm finish your thought, then I've got something else I want to ask.
No, so what happens is you're able to hang out what I call the Goldilocks zone, right? Not too hot, not competing with the retail buyers, but not really competing with the flippers and the wholesalers. Yeah. So, and again, for such a low out of pocket, no one's really ever lost on this, that people that I help. And, no, but the idea is like, you put 3.5% down, the average appreciation rate of U.S. housing in the last 30, 40 years is 3-4% a year. So it's so little out of pocket. So even if it's just something, as you said, to get started, you can get in. Yeah, you can get into this and get a return pretty quickly. But most importantly, get you into the game. And that's
so
that's the beauty.
Here's the caveat. Yeah. Okay, those of you listening, you got to have some vision. Because what you're going to be buying is what scares most buyers away. Okay, you got to be able to see the finished product, and it may be a shit show when you're first looking at it. You're like, oh my God, this is terrible. There's crap everywhere. There's holes in the walls. Whatever. You got to be able to see through that. Have some vision.
Oh, 100%.
So just realize that you're going to be looking at stuff a lot of people don't want anything to do with. And but I love the fact that they give you these guardrails to protect you with your contractors.
Absolutely.
And it's a fantastic program. I'm really impressed. And so what's the most challenging part of the whole thing doing this? What do you think is the most challenging part?
Sure. So for me on the investing side, right? Because the whole thing is like, the people that typically come to me, they want to be real estate investors long-term, right? They want to use this as a vehicle to house hack, start owning multiple units and everything like that. So it's like anything else, finding the deal, right? You got to place a lot of offers. That's the hardest part. You got to place a lot of offers. But again, when I was placing 100 offers to find a deal when I was flipping, this, you place 10, me and my wife, it was our 11th offer. things pencil out a little better. So, finding the deal, of course, and being patient with that.
But you're not going to have as much competition because these
you're not.
properties need work.
No,
and
you're
they're going to
not.
scare the average,
Retail's not gonna
girl.
wanna see it.
So I shouldn't be a sexist here, but they're gonna scare the average emotional buyer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get some hate for that too, probably. But they're gonna, that wants the white picket fence and the beautiful kitchen with the perfect stuff and all that stuff. So again, have vision, guys. That's all I'm going to tell you here, because this is an extraordinary program to get started.
Well, one of the things too, and I just to highlight that, because it's a really another cool aspect of this loan, especially if you're buying the multifamily and you're having your tenants basically pay your mortgage.
Right.
They have it built into the loan. It's an option. You could choose to do it, but they know, because people think, okay, well, how am I going to live through a renovation? And they're not expecting you to.
Valid point.
Right?
Valid. So you don't have to move until it's done.
No, not at all.
Okay.
And what they have is they give you the option to wrap into, it's now up to the first 9 months mortgage payments into the loan. So you don't have to pay out of pocket for a property that you're renovating.
Wow.
Now, again, it'll increase your principal. Again,
Well,
that's
sure.
why I talk about buying good deals.
Right.
Because it will affect that. But,
Sure.
it's built in such a way that
9
they know
months of
up to,
float.
yeah.
So you can still be renting somewhere else. You're not getting killed. That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
That is freaking beautiful. What are the limits? What are the limits on a single family duplex, triplex, fourplex? I know it's geographic, but just give me some rough ideas.
Yeah, so in New York near me, they're pretty high, right?
Right.
There's the high cost of living areas, which
Sure.
are your California,
New York, California.
New York. And those are like, they start at, I think it's like 1.1, 1.2 million. And then a fourplex is like 2.4.
Holy shit.
Now it does come down considerably in some of the
I mean,
the
this
lower
is so
cost of
funny
living.
to hear that,
Yeah.
because I just remember it was a couple $100,000 when I was, oh Jesus, I'm old.
Yeah, I mean, I have a guy, one of my community members, one of the guys I walked through this process. He bought a triplex in New York, just north of New York City. Picked it up for about $800,000, put about $180,000 into it. It's a loan for $1 million, got a full 6% seller's concession, only came out with $35,000 out of pocket.
No kidding.
And he has a $1 million asset in New York, just outside of New York City,
Fantastic.
and he already has $400K equity on the deal off of $35,000.
Fantastic.
So the leverage again is so high, and in these high cost of living states, like in areas, they know that it's going to be a little more.
What would it be
expensive.
here in Florida, for example?
So it's, don't
Or
quote me on
Texas
this
or one of the
exactly.
red
Yeah,
states,
like I think
just
single
curious.
families, like closer, they all just, a lot of the limits just went up considerably.
No, just
they're pretty good.
approximately.
Yeah, I think like 500K, 600K.
Okay.
And then Fanny May and FHA kind of have different limits. It depends on the market. Always Google FHA or Fannie Mae loan limits in your market.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it can vary in certain areas, but they're pretty favorable.
Yeah.
There's a couple markets where you'll find
realistic, really, is probably what they are.
they're realistic. Yeah,
Yeah.
they do a good job. It's not like they're cutting you out on that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So yeah, I mean, this is a fantastic springboard to what I do. Because it
100%.
demystifies the whole real estate. Oh my God, I don't own a home. I don't own anything, and it gives you an opportunity to get started. So I'm going to encourage you. If you can find a fixer upper, freaking buy the damn thing and use a 203K. Have Matt guide you through the process and get your first property under your belt. Find a Plex. Mm-hmm. Fantastic way to start. Now you have to go duplex, triplex, fourplex. You go higher than that, this doesn't work.
Well,
that's
here's
commercial.
a cool thing.
Okay.
If I can interrupt. So
Fannie might go more.
No, they're
okay.
up to 4. But what you can do is you have the renovation.
Okay.
So what I've had a couple people do is they take a 5-plex or a 6-plex, convert it down to a 4.
They bring it down to a 4. Oh, that's smart. Okay.
Because now there's nothing out there that's going to allow you to put 3.5% down on a 6-plex.
Oh, so
But
what
you
he's
do is you
talking
bring it
about
down-
is find a 6-plex and convert 2 1-bedrooms into a 2-bedroom, right?
Exactly. And
Right.
so one of the guys I helped bought a 5-plex in Albany and converted that 5th unit down to a 4-unit and made that a duplex. He still made the same amount of cash flow
Wow.
at a lower interest rate with only $17,000 down.
Yeah. Oh, that's slick. That's
So
slick.
a cool I wanted to
that's
throw
a
that
cool
in there
hack.
because you're the multi guy.
That's
so
a cool hack.
If you're fishing, and again, if you're willing to live in the property for a quick
that's the
year,
key. That's the
yeah.
key.
But you could fish in those 5-6 unit environments and
Sure
bring
could.
it down. You could also
Easy.
do mixed use as well.
Yeah.
Mixed use is allowed on these
Really?
loans. Yeah.
So what he means, mixed use is, maybe there's a storefront Now, would you keep the storefront? You could keep the
Yeah,
storefront?
so the only rule with it is that you can't use the renovation budget to renovate
The storefront.
The storefront.
Only
You could renovate, like you could white box it type of thing,
okay.
but you could get it set up, utilities and stuff, but you can't build a store out with it. But the only rule with that is 51% or the majority of the square footage needs to be residential.
Yeah.
We've done a couple.
Well, that's
of those.
cool. You get an old property like you have so many of those up by you in New York,
in Jersey,
man.
New York,
yeah,
it's big.
God, all over. Every corner's got a little store, and then they got residential behind it and stuff
100%.
on top of it.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. So, I have a lot of aspiring real estate people. I mean, they listen to this show, and they know they need to go do something. Give them some encouragement.
The thing, as the engineer with the analysis paralysis and the guy that always was looking for a better way, is I spent a lot of time thinking that there was going to be some epiphany that was going to come from some book, or there was some secret, or there was some, just one more book or one more course or one more. And it's so cliche, but one of my favorite quotes of all time is, Marcus Aurelius, rough Stoic idea of it is the obstacle is the way. And like the thing in front of you is the direction you need to be going in. And I learned that, and I still to this day don't know if Melissa didn't tell me about that 203K, and if people were talking about the 203K, I don't know if I would have done it. I don't know if I would have read up on it and saw. I almost felt that the lack of information on it was enough for me, because I trusted her a lot. So I was like, this is my only option. And my whole platform is called the 203K way, because that was the way that I got into real estate investing. Everyone gets in a different way, but that 203K loan got me in the way. But it was a blessing because it forced me to just focus on one step in front of me every time. I couldn't think about what could go wrong down the line. So it's really just ripping the Band-Aid and going in. And I know it's so scary to think, and I know I understand. And, I work with people that are in that aspiring real estate investors, do not have a deal yet, haven't even bought a house yet in many cases. And even just the act of buying a house is scary for them. But again, with something like this, it is built in such a way, and especially if you follow it the way I tell you to do, it's built in such a way that it really it puts the bumpers on, right? It makes sure that you do it. So if you just trust the process and just know that in this day and age, man, my belief is like the way that the housing market's heading, like home ownership is becoming less and less attainable for the middle class.
Yeah,
it's a sad reality,
Agreed.
But you got to get into something.
You got to get going, and get going now. Okay, don't freaking wait.
Exactly,
because it isn't going down. It's not, especially with this incredible housing crunch. We won't even talk about the 11 or 17 million people that have crossed the border recently that need a place to live. I mean, it's getting insane.
No, it is, and to the point of that, like, one of the things I tell people too is, you always hear, landlords are evil, and
I get that hate every single day.
I'm sure you
every
do,
single day,
as we all do, right?
Yeah.
But truly, housing is a problem in this country,
Sure.
and you can be part of the solution by house hacking.
Yeah.
By using this, ADUs are becoming huge.
Oh yeah, talk
accessory
about that.
dwelling units,
talk
right?
about that.
So accessory dwelling units is a lot of the government's answer to solving the housing crisis. So they allow you. They're basically doing sweeping rezoning of all single family homes across the U.S. They're doing it in New York. They're doing it in all these places everyone says it would never happen. And they're allowing you to put an accessory unit. Now, it's not like a separate duplex, complete unit, but it allows you, in California, they
Elon
call
Musk
them casitas.
has those little things.
Yeah,
that you
of
can
course.
use those.
Yeah. And what's crazy, now you have the prefab homes and stuff. With a 203K or a home style, you can use the budget to buy a prefab home. You know how you see like on Lowe's, they sell those mini homes?
Really?
You can go on Lowe's and use the renovation budget to buy a $20,000 shell.
You're kidding.
And put it in your backyard as long as your local zoning works for it.
Holy crap.
So you could do that, number one. And number two, if you really want to solve a problem.
Hold on.
Yeah,
hold on. That's a big one. So
Yeah.
you can use the renovation budget to throw a second unit in your backyard or whatever if you've got enough land and it's zoned properly.
And the White House literally put out, FHA has been putting out like ADUs and co-living, which is another big thing, another version of house hacking, renting out by the bedroom.
Right.
They are saying, they're promoting this is the solution, and they're pushing it. Now listen, the suburban home buyer, that just moved into the
homeowners
suburb. It
not
hurt.
happening.
Of course, you don't want overcrowding of the suburbs, but at the same time, I do understand that housing's a problem, and you are solving a big issue for people. You're giving them some affordable housing, and you're helping yourself out. It really is the best solution. You could be a landlord. You could make some money. You could set yourself up and your family financially, while also using these new. I mean, in New York, they're giving you a $150,000 grant on like a separate loan that they're giving to you to build these ADUs.
No kidding.
Yeah, so like you could, it's a problem, and you could take advantage of it now. Who knows how long they're going to push this?
Yeah, no.
So it's a great opportunity for that. But ADUs are becoming big. So you have that, and you have the co-living model, which is another model where you can, you basically rent out by the room and solve the issue again. But you could use these renovation loans to set up a property to do that. Now, obviously, that's a special case if you want to do that, especially if you're living there and you want to do that. But it's like people are creating like little frat houses, and
no kidding,
and people are loving it. People actually, it's a solution for people.
Yeah, no, don't get me started down that path. There's a reason New York's broke and $150,000.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I mean,
no,
listen,
I invest there, but I don't want to be there too much.
Might as well take advantage of it, though, for Christ's sake.
Of course.
Take advantage of it.
Exactly.
Well, listen, his website's the 203K Way /apply to check out his stuff. And I've never done that before, but I believe in this, so that's why I agreed to do this with you. Yeah, I really think this is a great way for someone to get started if they're fearful and they don't want to jump into multifamily. Start here, man. Get a little place yourself. Move in it. Make sure everybody's on board and okay with not having exactly that white picket fence yet.
Right.
But what a great way to get started. So I appreciate you coming in, brother.
Thanks,
Great
man.
to meet you, man.
I appreciate. Great to meet you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yep. So one other quick thing. We encounter so many people that are frankly frustrated. They're looking in the mirror and they're frustrated that they haven't been able to escape the rat race. They haven't been able to build cash flow to the point where they're able to have financial and time freedom with their families. And maybe they see other people buying real estate and creating, incredible cash flow, and they think, well, it's just scary. Buying apartments is intimidating. And I get it. But see, that's why we created our Warrior Mentorship Program. They're our coaching students, and they've had extraordinary results. My students, I've been teaching about 5 years, and they own upwards of 140,000 units now that we know of, right? And we feel like it's just getting going. Now, we're looking to grow this group and really take it to the next level. And honestly believe that the greatest transfer of wealth could be upon us right now with this current economic environment. Everything's going on sale. So we're looking for people who want to follow a proven framework, really like a blueprint or a map, literally step by step. And then they're able to leverage our systems and our incredible network to raise money and equity, to find deals and close those deals and build partnerships, really nationwide. So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become more in our incredible network and take advantage of the unbelievable opportunities that are upon us, you can apply to my Warrior Mentorship Program by texting the word CRUSH to 72345, or you can go to mentorwithrod.com. And what we'll do is we'll set up a call so you can check us out and we can check you out and see if it's a fit. Now, again, you can go to mentorwithrod.com or text the word CRUSH to 72345 to apply, and we will speak soon.